Welcome back, Camily. I film these Q&As and I go live a lot, and there are certain questions that I just tend to avoid. A lot of the times it's because it's just a lot to get into, or something that I've answered multiple times but still get asked a bunch, and I'm just like, I feel like I've already answered that. But the questions just keep coming up, or they're just kind of a little too personal, and especially when I'm on live, I just don't always want to go that deep. But today I will be answering all of those questions that I avoid so they can have a permanent place on my channel and maybe they won't come up as much. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. The first one being, what is your sexuality? Which I understand why I get this a lot. I've come out as bi, as pan, as just queer, and also gender fluid, and also lesbian. So clearly she's figuring it out, you know? I've known that I'm not straight since I was 14, and still at 22, I am trying to find a label that suits me. I avoid this question because it's just hard to explain the way I feel about it, and I feel like I can just ramble on and on about this topic for a long time. Maybe I'll do a whole video about my sexuality and trying to figure it out and just why it's been such a struggle for me. But I believe sexuality is something that's very fluid, and it changes as we change and as we grow. I'm at a point in my journey with that where now that I've really looked at how I feel, I can't unsee it. And I'm at a point where it's really, really hard for me to picture ending up with a man. When it comes to dating, no part of me is interested in men. And that's at least how I feel right now. And I am just a bit hesitant to fully come out as a lesbian. But it's a label that I've been trying on and that I feel aligns with where I'm at right now. I just wish labels weren't something we took so seriously. Like I said, I just wish we could try on different labels and see what feels right till we eventually land on something, or maybe we land on nothing. And that's also a very valid place to be. But yeah, I have zero interest in men, not really attracted to them. I've spent a lot of my life trying to make it work with them. Don't want to do that. I think I will be much happier in a relationship with a woman. There's way more to it than I think I'd be happier, but yeah, ultimately that's where I see myself ending up, is with a woman, with a little wife. But in general, I can definitely say that I am queer, which is to me an umbrella term, essentially just meaning that I'm not straight. The next question is, did Landon know about your sexuality? And he did. Like I said, I figured it out when I was 14 that I was attracted to women, and I started dating Landon when I was 14, and he knew. He was the first person I came out to. And it's annoying because I get comments being well, what would Landon have thought about this? How would Landon feel if he knew that you were all gay now? And I'm he did know. And he didn't care. Why are we pushing this angle? And it's very much just something that people are claiming on his behalf, and it's really weird. What are your pronouns? My pronouns are she, her. Just getting all the gay questions out of the way right up front. Like I said before, I was dealing with some gender confusion a while back. I've concluded that it was just internalized misogyny that made me reject womanhood and femininity. Not to say that that's the case for anyone else who's questioning their gender. That was just the case for me. And I feel very confident and happy being a woman. I wouldn't want to be anything else. Someone asked, am I single? I am. I made a video recently talking about being single and talking about the idea of dating again and how I want it to just happen naturally. But recently I've got on the dating apps and I'm just trying it out, you know? I'm giving the dating apps a go. I feel if I'm yeah, one day, my person's just gonna walk right into my life. But if I don't leave my house and like don't put myself out there in any way, how is that gonna happen? So yeah, I don't know. I think I needed to just like try putting myself out there and just seeing how that felt. I've only been doing it for like a week, but I don't know. It's not going great. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. I definitely think it's unnatural and weird to like look at all your prospects on an app and photos of people and then like talking through text and then meeting in person. Like, I don't know. It's definitely strange. Have you been with a girl? I think I get this question a lot because I'm so openly queer and people are like, I've literally never seen you with a girl. But I have been with a girl before, and it was very validating after kind of suppressing those feelings since I was 14 to eventually like actually do the thing and be like, okay, yeah, no, like it's everything I thought it would be. And it just further like validated me and my own feelings about my sexuality. And that's all the gay questions out of the way. Wanted to get them done first. I just kind of tend to avoid those because it's just kind of a complicated topic that a lot of people aren't going to relate to and really understand what I mean when I say those things. The next question is, who am I still friends with out of the teen mom YouTuber friend group? And for anyone who's been watching for a while, you know exactly who we're talking about here. But yeah, especially when I'm on live, it'll be like, are you friends with this person? Are you friends with that person? And they'll ask like one person after another and like try to figure out who's still friends with who. And I just feel like those questions are just like pushing the drama that doesn't need to be drama at this point, because you know, we all had our falling outs way long ago, and I feel like this question just like starts stuff. But I'm gonna answer it right now anyways, just so we can stop asking, because I am still friends with some of the girls and I feel like it doesn't hurt to say that. Me and Maddie have pretty much always been chill. Me and Yasmin haven't been friends or talked for a really long time, but recently we kind of reconnected and we're on good terms now, which wasn't the case for a long time, so that's great. And the same with Zoe. I recently got lunch with her when I was in Florida. We reconnected, we hung out. We had a very bad falling out a while back, and years later we were able to talk it out and it felt really good. And Allie Brooke, I am actually seeing her next weekend. She's gonna come spend time with me and the girls. We also just haven't really talked in a long time. Me and her have always been friends and never really had like a big falling out. Well, I guess we did at one point, but over the last few years we've been like friendly, but she's also just had a lot going on in her own life. But being that I'm closer to her now, we're able to see each other and hang out again and catch up, and I think it'll be really good. Yeah, it's crazy. Over the last like few months, everyone's kind of like working things out finally. I don't think all of us are ever gonna be like as close as we once were, but I don't know. Those girls hold a place in my heart and mean a lot to me. But yeah, out of everyone, me and Maddie have like remained the closest. And that's that on that, and we can stop flooding the comments with, are you friends with Zoe still? Are you friends with Maddie? Are you friends with Allie? Are you friends with Yasmin? What happened between you and your mom? I've talked about it vaguely here and there in several videos, but basically I went no contact with her when I moved away from Florida like over 6 months ago. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm not gonna get into specifics. My relationship with my mother has always been very complicated for as long as I can remember. From a very young age, we have always just kind of been estranged from each other. I think out of all of my siblings, me and her always had the most like disconnected relationship. And all of my siblings have their own individual problems in their relationship with her. But yeah, there's some stuff from my childhood that was just really difficult that I'm still working through. And then on top of that, like when I was living in Florida, those childhood wounds just kept getting triggered over and over again because there were certain things that just like still weren't changing and still very much a problem. And it was just tough. I think when I became a mom myself, my perspective on things kind of changed a little bit, and I really wanted that good relationship with my mother. And so I just accepted a lot of things that really were hurting me. Things were said, something would happen, and I'd be hurt by it, but I wouldn't say anything, and I'd just be like, well, that's just my mom. That's just how she is. And my partners in the past would get very frustrated because they're like, how are you just letting this like happen? Like, stick up for yourself, say something. I would just like avoid conflict for a really long time. But then as I started to go to therapy and work through some stuff and kind of got my voice back, I tried to challenge the way that things were and let it be known when I was hurt by something. And it just never went over well, and we just could not communicate with each other when there was a problem. And it just got so bad to a point where I just really felt it was better that I didn't have her in my life for a while. There was a lot of things that she needed to work on in order for a relationship with me to function well, and there was stuff I needed to work through and resentment I needed to let go of. I think there's always going to be a level of like, that's just my mom, you know? It's the way that she is. But I feel like I'm in a place where I can speak up for myself and communicate and know my boundaries and know when to just let go and walk away. So yeah, I went to Florida, we visited, things were all right. We're on speaking terms again. I don't know that I'm ever gonna have like this awesome relationship with my mom. I hope so, but yeah, it is what it is. Do you still smoke? I do not smoke. I made a video a while ago talking about my medical marijuana card. When I was living in Florida, that's something that I had access to, and I felt like it did help a lot with healing my PTSD and just working through stuff, dealing with anxiety. But it kind of got to a point where I'm like, how long am I going to use this as a crutch, you know? And I was moving to Texas, and it is illegal in Texas. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna quit when I move, you know? Feels like the right time. I picked up nicotine instead for like a month or two when I first moved here. I think I just liked the habit of smoking, and I was used to like smoking weed every night, and so I kind of replaced that with like smoking a cigarette every night, which very quickly my body was just like, let's not do this, and I just started to feel icky and bad and like sick. It stopped being something I looked forward to, and it was just something that was like making me feel bad, and I quit pretty seamlessly. And now I don't smoke anything anymore. I don't have a vape, I don't smoke cigarettes, I don't smoke weed. In all honesty, do you regret being a mom? I don't regret being a mom. I think regret is a really big word in any context. Like, very rarely will I sit there and be like, wow, I really regret that. Regret is not a feeling I like to hold on to. I love being a mom. Like, I don't know where I'd be in life without those girls. They're my everything. I'm so lucky to be their mom, but for their sake, I wish I would have waited longer in life to become a mom. Like, if I could have had Coco and Dee Dee, those exact little girls, when I was older, when I was like in my late 20s, I think for many reasons that would have been better for all of us. There's a level of guilt that comes with having kids young and not being able to give them everything you want to. And in my situation, being that I made decisions at 16 to share my kids on the internet and dropped out of high school and pursued YouTube instead, those are very much 16-year-old decisions that should have had so much more weight and thought. And part of me thinks like the adults in my life kind of should have stepped in more. I wish I had more guidance during that time, but also it's on me. They're decisions that I made, but I think I would have finished high school if I could go back and set myself up for success a little more than I did. Now at 22, I'm facing some of the consequences of decisions I made at 16, and it's tough. So yeah, do I regret being a mom? No. Do I think it was less than ideal to have kids at 16, and would I change that now if I could? Yeah, probably. But if that meant that I wouldn't have those girls, then no. Next question is, why do you move so often? I avoid this one because it's like, it just irks me. In the year after Landon passed away, I moved like 3 times. Nothing made sense in my life. Everything was in limbo. I had no idea where my life was gonna go from there. The last thing I'm gonna do is like settle down and buy a house at that point. I was in a situation where I was moving closer to family and living with family, and my housing needs changed multiple times in those years based on who was living with me and who wasn't, and what family member was in the house with me at the time. And people give me shit for it because they're like, those girls need stability. You're always moving. Why do you keep moving? You're moving again? Yeah, my life is a mess and I'm figuring it out. Like, especially after everything happened, like, we didn't have stability. And that was very much out of my control. I knew I didn't want to live in Florida. We hopped around several different rentals. Finding a stable, consistent rental in a vacation town is hard in and of itself. Due to circumstances completely out of my control, I had to move around a lot in those 2 years. And it just annoys me that people like blame me for that and talk about how it's gonna like negatively affect my kids. They're not really gonna remember living in any of those houses, really. I understand how important stability and a home is to a child who's growing up, but like, after everything that happened, I'm just doing the best I can, trying to find a place for us that feels good and safe. And our house currently is that right now, and if it ever comes to a point, if I'm not able to renew my lease and I'm not in a position to buy a house right now, like, we might have to move again. I'm just tired of being shamed. The moving shaming, it's annoying. That's why I avoid that question, because like, I just don't have to explain myself to people why I've had to move so many times. I don't like it. I don't want to move. I'm bored of this house. Let's just get a new one. Let's move for funsies. It's not like that. Are you still writing a book? I have started writing a book. I got to a point about a year ago where I finally felt ready to tell my story. I think I always knew at some point I would, but there's a lot that I had to work through until I got to that point. And then I got there and I'm like, I don't know how. I know I want to do it in a way that's respectful and honest and that aims to help people. Like, that is the point, is to help people who are in those situations, and I want to be able to reach those people. And with everything that happened, like, it just makes the most sense to write a book. But I don't know, I've been telling myself for the past year that I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna sit down and write the book, and it's just not easy, and it's coming along very slowly. I just don't have much of a direction for it right now. And I'm kind of at a place where I'm like, okay, I'm either gonna sit down and just do it and write the book and just stop holding myself back, or I'm gonna find a different way to tell my story. I think I'd reach more people if I was to sit down and tell my story in a YouTube video, but there's so much to the story. It would take multiple long YouTube videos of me sitting down, and the message that I'm trying to get across would just kind of get lost in that, and it might turn into more people just wanting to hear the details and disregarding the actual message behind why I'm telling my story. So I'm just trying to find a way to tell my story that's gonna make the most positive impact. I'm not sure how, but one day I will. Did anyone know about the abuse beforehand? For a long time, nobody knew anything about what I was going through. 3 months before Landon passed away, I told his family, I told my family, I told some of my friends, and I finally came forward. Everyone tried very desperately to get him and me and the girls some help. Another question that I get a lot is, why didn't you open up publicly about the abuse sooner? And like I said earlier, like, it just took me a long time to be ready to tell my story. I had to deal with it myself. I had to stop blaming myself for it. I had to recognize it for exactly what it was And I had to forgive myself for ending up in that situation in the first place, because I was very upset with myself that that happened to me, that had gone on for as long as it did. But after I did work through it, I just felt a calling to be an advocate. Just sitting there thinking about all the girls who felt exactly how I felt. I just knew that I needed someone back then to be straight with me and just tell me, what you're going through is abuse and it's not okay and you need to leave. And I want to be that for people as much as I can and in any way that I can. And having a platform, that means being a voice. People bring up very often that I should have said something when Landon was still alive and still able to give his side of the story and defend himself. It was not safe for me to do so at the time. When I told my friends and family, I was putting myself in danger doing so. I had to physically remove me and the girls from that situation before I could even tell people about it, to make sure we were safe and he didn't retaliate. If I had gone public during that time on social media and said, this is what's happening, that would have been putting me and my kids in danger. And then after he passed away, it just did not feel like the right time to be going public with that, nor was I ready to do that. That's just a comment I see all the time. Why didn't you do that sooner? Why didn't you come forward with it when he was here? Because I was not safe. As a domestic violence survivor, what comment bothers you the most? I sadly get this way too often, and it's people saying, well, you weren't perfect either. I'm sure you weren't perfect in the relationship. After me talking about how I was physically abused. And it honestly is just sad that people think that way. That directly implies that I deserve it in some way. Whatever thing I might have done or said that wasn't perfect on my end means I deserved it. To call yourself a victim is not to call yourself a saint. For me to say that I was physically abused is not me saying I'm a perfect person who did nothing wrong in the relationship. But I did not abuse my partner. That's the difference. Yes, neither of us were perfect in the relationship. We both did things wrong at times. But the things that I did wrong were normal things that everybody deals with in a relationship, different challenges. And the things that he did wrong were abusive. It makes no sense to compare those. There's this idea of what a victim looks like and should act like and should be like, and what makes a real victim. Everybody and anybody can fit into the label of victim. The only criteria is that you have been through that abuse. You could have cheated on your partner and talked badly about them to all your friends and family and done X, Y, and Z, and you'd still be a victim of domestic violence, no matter what. That doesn't change anything. And seeing comments like that just further makes me want to spread my message and advocate for these victims, because there's such a stigma around what a victim is and what a victim isn't. And a domestic violence victim is a domestic violence victim. Nobody is perfect, but nobody deserves that. Do I think I'll ever get married again? It's another question I avoid because I don't like to speak in absolutes and to say never, because I don't know. I have a long life ahead of me. As of right now, marriage is something that doesn't sound appealing, isn't a value of mine, isn't something I'm aiming for in life, is to get married again. But I still wouldn't say never, I think at this point all I could say is, as of right now, I don't want to get married again. And right along with that, I get asked, do you think you'll ever have more kids? No. That's definitely a deal breaker for me. I think if someone wanted kids and was with me, that would be the thing that would end it. I do not want any more kids. I used to think I wanted 4 kids. And when I was pregnant with Delilah, I just had this feeling right away where I was like, this is it. I just know in my heart that This is the last time I'll be pregnant. This is the last kid I'll have. I'd be open to having stepchildren sometime in the future maybe. But yeah, I'll never be pregnant again, ever. With that, I do feel like I can speak in absolutes. There's just no way. That is all for today's video. That got kind of heavy, but you know, you guys asked me a lot of heavy questions. And I avoid them quite frequently, but now I can just redirect people here and be like, I've talked about that. Go watch the video. I'm not getting into it again, you know? That was kind of hard and vulnerable, but hey, made a good video, you know? Hope you enjoyed. I wouldn't make this video unless I was comfortable talking about all these things. And most of you really do respect my boundaries and understand that I'm not gonna answer a question that I don't want to answer, you know? Obviously, I picked what I answered. There's certain questions that I am still just never gonna answer because it's just like not something I want to talk about. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, Camly.